I'd like to welcome you all to this meeting on Monday, April 4th of the Sustainability Advisory Board and call the meeting to order. I'm guessing we have no public comment because we have no public. However, I would like to take a step back and make a public comment for a second here. Last year, we had done something called No Mow May, and the council had really only approved that for one year. And my bad, I forgot to bring it up like February or March or something when we could have, made sure it got passed through the council again for another year. However, when our council liaison arrives, or when I talk to him later, we'll see if he could maybe still bring that up. It is still something very viable, and it kind of goes along with our native plantings that we'll be talking about later too. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there.
Could I comment on that, please?
Yes, you may.
All right. So I had thought that when it was written in such a way that it could be just renewed every year as like a, not just saying like this is just this year.
I believe it was, Michelle, but it has to be looked at every year by the council.
Gotcha. Okay.
So we don't have to do anything with it except to remind them, is my
Okay.
understanding. Is that how you remember it? We might have to go back
I'm not
and
for
look.
sure, but I know that the only thing I am 100% sure of is that it was only approved for 1 year. So we can look back at that resolution that did get approved and see what the language says. So I'll do that and then get back to you.
Okay.
Maybe tomorrow.
Sure, that'd be
Okay.
great, thank you.
Can I comment as well? I thought of this this week as well, and then hadn't, I think it was too late to get it on the agenda. So if we need to get it on the agenda, perhaps we should just put it.
We can't add to the agenda after it's been noticed, which is why I brought it up in public comment.
Yeah.
So we'll have to ask it to be put on
For
the
the
council, for the
oh.
council agenda.
Okay.
Well, the next meeting, it will be May.
Okay. Oh, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what surprised me.
We're
I didn't,
already-
I didn't really
yeah.
realize it was April already, you know?
If needed, we could have a special meeting.
That's
if
true, we
needed.
could.
So I'll look at the resolution and then get back with Margie and we'll figure out what we need to do.
Okay, thank you, Brandon. Is there any other public comment? Guessing not. Let's move on. Approval of the minutes from March 7th.
I had a comment. Under-
Somebody has to make a motion to,
Let me make a comment.
no, somebody has to make a motion about approval of them, and then we can
Then
make a
we can
comment, we can discuss
okay.
them.
Okay.
So would anyone like to make that motion?
Motion approved.
Thank you. A second, please? Okay, go ahead, Pat.
Now I can have a discussion. Okay.
Yes.
Just the minutes under, Brandon read the letter I wrote since I couldn't be at the meeting. And it says the letter's attached to the minutes, and I couldn't find it attached to the minute.
Okay. Make sure to get that added.
Okay, yeah. Good catch.
Good catch.
Yeah.
I looked for it.
My intent was just to add it at the end. So
Oh.
it's probably just a
okay.
clerical error.
I don't think.
It's
I'll
not
look
on there.
again.
Yeah.
Okay,
No, I didn't see it either, and I didn't think about it.
okay. Yeah, I didn't see it. Okay.
Okay, well, with that one amendment to the minutes, everybody approve as written?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes? You can say it out loud, we don't have to.
Waiting for roll call.
No, I only have to do roll call online. Is that what happens?
Yes,
Oh, okay.
we're all
Yeah.
just so programmed to do it.
Yeah.
Okay, that takes us up to our environmental justice resolution, which I thought I had a copy of here somewhere.
So if I may,
Yes, please do.
so DEI looked at it at their meeting on the 28th.
Oh, good.
They did not have any comments to add or remove anything. They basically pushed it forward back to SAB with their support of the resolution
As written.
as written. Or with the edits, they,
With the edits in the red line.
correct, the red line, yep.
Which the staff had done, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So if they like that, do any of us have any discussion on that? Oh, yeah. Can we discuss that first? Since we need to have action on this tonight, I guess we really need a motion to discuss this too.
Need a motion to discuss.
Thanks.
I will
That
motion
all
to
it is,
discuss.
A motion to discuss the environmental justice concepts.
Yes.
Yes,
And Vic said second, right?
sure did.
Okay,
Yep.
now let's talk about it.
Killing it, okay.
Thoughts on this, anyone, everyone? We all studied this all month, I know we did.
My two comments were going to be follow-up from DEI. And it sounds like they've given this approval, which is good. And my other comment, I guess I've sort of answered in rereading, is just about sort of how this will be used. But it seems like somewhat in general, it will inform decision-making in various aspects and be used through this city strategic plan and comprehensive plan. So,
And everybody gets to use that cool app,
and there's the mapping tool.
yes.
So other than that, I don't know that I have any other comment.
So you would support it?
I would support it, yep, with the staff.
Okay, anyone else? Any comments at all?
I like the edits. I thought it was well written.
Okay, so you'd support it as written,
As written with the edits, yeah.
with the edits, yeah?
I guess just for clarification, in the first comment, LL1, where it wants to remove the word used, but then does it really give us the word to replace it with? It just says recommend amending the language to remove this ambiguous wording and focus on the federal establishment of a robust policy. So are we putting in there
I think they're removing the
robust,
word
just like
iteratively.
completely, or?
The word, how do you say that word?
Iteratively.
Iteratively, they're just removing that word.
Okay, and it's not being replaced? I guess that's just where I was confused.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna be government has established.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
I think it was just, they figured it was redundant, maybe?
Yeah, well, it's ambiguous, and I get that, but
Yeah,
I just wanted to clarify that wasn't being replaced by another word.
okay,
That was the only comment I had.
okay. Anyone else? See none, I suggest we vote on this. Everybody who would like to have this as written with the changes, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone against? All righty. Okay, we're half done. Now then, the native plant ordinance, and this we're hoping to take some action on tonight too. We do have a couple of copies of that, of examples of it. We have the staff version and we have the
Proposed.
proposed version, yeah, the sustainability version, the one that we did before. So is there any discussion between the two versions, or the people who worked on this, do you want to say something?
I move that we discuss
Okay, thank you.
both versions.
Okay,
Second? I'll be here all night.
okay.
Ginger ale.
I guess the first thing that comes to my mind, what type of wording would be used for rank growth and other vegetation? When I worked at the city of Appleton, this was always a conflict with people about what was weeds and what wasn't.
Yeah, I guess in the version Michelle and I worked on, we took out the other vegetative matter type, just, we took out that language and just went with noxious weeds and turf grass in excess of 8 inches, and they put in dandelions in part A, and then in part B, they put other vegetative growth as defined above, but I don't see where it's defined above.
Yeah, the only,
Yeah.
we did define current, or noxious weeds, and I think that's, yeah, that's the
So,
main,
but why would they add other vegetative growth in? What does that mean?
right.
You know,
That
so
is ambiguous.
That's part of, and I
Yep.
guess we haven't met with them, so I'm not sure I haven't met with the staff who reviewed this, so I'm not sure what they were thinking or what they were trying to do by putting in the terminology, other vegetative growth.
Right.
So I'm not sure what they wanted or,
I'm just gonna pull it up so we can all.
Can you see
Yeah.
over my head?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just.
And the
confused as to
other-
which one we should be looking at or
Yeah,
using.
which
So
one it is.
look at the staff version, the staff edit version,
Okay,
And they also have, yeah, look at the staff version.
because that
Okay.
has what Pat and I worked on, but then their edits are in red.
Yeah, their edits
From what
are
we
edits
worked
on what we gave them, right?
Right.
Basically, so
Okay.
we agreed, even though it's crossed out with the definition of noxious weeds,
Now
they
look at it
agreed
at
with
close.
us on
Come over this
that.
way.
Yeah.
In the 1733 Part E, they kept with our definition of noxious weeds, which is based on Wisconsin statutes, basically, right?
Yep.
But then in Part A, they took out our part. Well, no, it's a little bit weird what they did. They didn't, they're editing, they're crossing out the original.
Yeah, it's a little hard to read that way, I guess, because some
Yeah.
of ours are edits, ours, both mine and Pat's edits and the staff's edits are in red.
right, here.
And
I
the
think
original
that's-
language is in black.
This is the one we're working on.
Okay, so
the staff edit.
this is the staff edit, so.
Yes.
So we're basically in agreement on that 1733E.
Correct.
Yep.
Okay, we're in agreement on that. Then on the 1744A, by the way, this isn't really a native plant ordinance, this is a lawn care ordinance and a weed cutting ordinance, but it addresses issues about native plants. So then in their Part B, no, Part A, weed had nothing about dandelions, which they put in.
So is your part the red that's crossed out? And then we're
No,
saying
it's-
staff is the underlined red?
No, I don't think so.
What was
No, no,
crossed
no.
out is what used to be there. It's what you started
The
with.
current
It's what we-
language.
Yeah, the current
Right.
language, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so the Part A, there's two things that Michelle and, well, there's one thing that Michelle and I, we put nothing in about dandelions.
Right.
But then also, if you read their language, the owner of every parcel of land within the city shall cut or cause to be cut all turf grass, dandelions, and noxious weeds as defined in 1733 and that are in excess of 8 inches. So does that mean you really can leave noxious weeds on your property just as long as they're not taller than 8 inches?
Yes.
Yeah,
That's what
how
that
I
means.
interpret it.
Is that what they really
Yep.
want?
So it
Because
seems
the
so.
way we have it written, noxious weeds, the way Michelle and I wrote it, I think noxious weeds have to go no matter how big they are or little they are. You know, do you know what I'm saying? They're actually
Well,
allowing
for-
noxious weeds as long as they're less than 8 inches tall.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Where are noxious weeds defined?
In the
Right.
Part
Go up.
E.
Right.
So we're just using state, the state has a list of noxious weeds.
So Brad, for clarification, the original code said this: all noxious weeds and other rank growth vegetation. It didn't really.
Oh, super vague.
It didn't give a
Define.
way to define noxious
Whereas
weeds.
now they're
Right.
defined by Wisconsin
The
state
state
code.
statute, right, which
Yes.
has a list, I think, right?
Yep, and then we put the ones that are classified as prohibited or restricted by the Wisconsin DNR per chapter, NR 40 as
Is
well.
it-
So these would be really like, not,
Lots of those are
not your
invasive
standard
species,
weeds.
and a lot of those are
Well,
invasive species, aren't
yes,
they? Yeah.
yes. Very invasive, non-native species.
So for instance, dandelions probably is not listed in this code.
Correct.
Okay, so
Right.
that's why.
It might be in the section 66, 47, and 66, 96. I'm not sure, but
think
maybe
we-
not the DNR one.
I think that staff looked at that and that was not listed in there, and that's why you
Oh,
see it listed there.
they wanted to put it back in.
Right.
Okay, okay. But then also, I mean, I'm looking at that, they will allow noxious weeds up to 8 inches tall then, the way this is written?
That's the way the current code is written as well. That enforcement doesn't start until 8 inches.
Okay, okay. Whereas I think probably the way Michelle and I wrote it, all uncut turf grass and noxious weeds as outlined above is declared to be a public nuisance. So the way we wrote the code would not allow any noxious weeds.
Yeah, I mean, it
I'm not
Might
sure
be-
how you can enforce
might be very
that,
difficult
though.
to enforce.
Right,
that.
right, but I'm just saying that's a difference, you know.
Well, there's a lot of differences.
Yeah, that's a difference.
On 8 inches, I think that at least shows that you're letting it go, versus
Yeah.
at a height where, you're starting to maybe recognize it and take care of it. So,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
yeah,
Okay,
I think
So,
that's
and then-
fine. I think it's the extra. So I mean, if with that explanation, that's a little bit helpful for that edit.
Okay, Okay. And then part,
Part B
Well, I
is
think
where it goes into other vegetative growth.
which is on, I don't see how it's defined. Noxious weeds is defined above, but I don't see where other vegetative growth is defined
Or just
above.
say dandelions.
But where do we stand on dandelions?
Oh,
Like, I think that's important to clarify, because that's
I-
also a huge language difference between staff and yours.
right.
Well, I think, you know, if they wanted to have dandelions in there in excess of 8 inches, I don't care about that. Because they said it wasn't including the other one, they really want it included, you know, that'd be okay. But, I think in B, that's my question, is that it changes. Says all uncut turf grass, noxious weeds, and other vegetative growth. Whereas up above, it says turf grass, dandelions, and noxious weeds.
A and B need to match.
Agreed.
Is that what you're saying,
Yes,
Cal?
that's what I'm saying, and
He needs to
vegetative
match.
growth is vague.
Well, it's
So that's
saying-
where Pat and I were,
It says vegetative growth as defined above, so it's just stating,
But where's
I
vegetarian?
think
Why
it needs to,
growth
as defined
defined?
above in A.
No, it's not
No.
noxious weeds. Oh,
As
oh.
defined in the same place,
correct.
1733E.
well, then just put like all uncut turf grass, dandelions, and noxious weeds as defined.
17
Above.
33.
Because I think adding vegetative growth makes it seem like there might be other,
I mean, I
Agreed,
looked
'cause
up what
vegetative
vegetative growth is, and that's anything with stems, roots, and leaves.
Super vague. Well, and vegetative growth isn't really defined above. The only thing we
No.
defined was noxious.
Right, right.
So
So either after in B, after as defined above, maybe perhaps a parenthetical reference to section A, or make them match wording
This.
between A and B.
That
I
would
think both,
make sense. Yeah.
Brad, I think that's a good
Or
point.
both. right?
Yeah,
So
Or
they
both.
can do all uncut turf grass, dandelions, and noxious weeds as defined in
above.
1733E.
That are in excess of 8 inches. Right? Is the 8-inch a factor that needs to be addressed in both A and B?
Yeah, that are in
would
excess of
say
8
so.
inches, yeah, you could do it.
So the language just needs to be copied
okay.
from
Right,
A into B
yeah,
to match.
That's
right.
1744.
When this went to
The other-
staff, Brandon, did this go through legal?
Yeah,
So this is what legal is giving us.
yeah.
Well, and I think if they already defined it in A and that's what they're trying to say, then I think it's fine if we, you know, copy that basically and put it in B, because
Then
it just is more
clear.
clear.
Yeah. Vegetative growth is not,
Right, exactly.
clear.
I think it's
that
more
could be
clear
a
in A.
rose bush, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Are we going with trees? Are we adding shrubs? Like,
right.
yeah.
You know,
I know it's not defined above, but
the other
Section.
difference between our B and their B is they have, in their B,
May we go back to this one?
I think, or maybe, no, in their A, any owner failing to comply with this provision is subject to penalties provided in 17-46. 17-46, and I don't have a copy of that, but 17-46 has fines defined, and then if you don't pay the fines, you can lose your license to drive, and you can be put in jail, which to me seems a little excessive for,
We can look at the code if you'd like.
yeah. I mean, 17-46 says, you know, and it has a whole bunch of different penalties depending on which part of the code you're violating, but there's a general section, and there's nothing that I saw that specifically referred to 17-44, so I'm assuming it's under the general. The general penalties,
Morals and conduct.
yeah. Penalties adult,
Penalties adult. Okay, so it's going to be Article 6.
there you go, okay, so it looks like, if I'm understanding this right, they have these different penalties, but different penalties apply to which part of the code you're violating. And as far as I could tell, the only one that would apply would be the general penalty. I didn't see a specific penalty for violating this section, 17-44. You can, maybe I missed it, but I didn't see it. So, for which a specific penalty is not provided shall be subject to a forfeiture of not less than 75, no more than 500, together with cost of prosecution. In default of payment, there will be suspension of operator's license or imprisonment. Seems a little excessive for not cutting your lawn, I'm sorry. I think the normal thing to do is the city comes in and cuts it, and then they put it on your tax bill, right?
That's my understanding of what normally happens, yeah.
Right, so I don't know why they have the 17-46.
Is there another, I mean, we'd have to read through this. I have not read through this section before, so is there maybe another part in here that
Yeah,
talks
B.
about?
Does B have 17-44?
No, but it says in addition to any other penalty provided in this code, the cost thereof together with an administrative charge.
In 1744, right, so there is that
Imposed each time the
penalty.
growth is cut shall be charged against the property as a special tax.
Right, so that's
Why-
already in
Again, why
there.
would the language be different?
Right.
They have
and
it in there,
we-
but they're also referring to the 17-46, so why
Right.
are they doing that?
Well, and we, in the SAB edit, we put failure to comply may result in a notice from the city staff or whatever department they'd put to come into compliance in no less than 30 days or be subject to city abatement as written in 1744B.
And 1744B says,
I just read.
yeah, meaning
The
they,
special tax.
So basically, the edit that you all made is the one that should be reapplied in this instance.
Oh, that would be our opinion.
yeah,
Because-
the costs thereof
Find a
with an
path.
administrative charge, so,
Well, again, it's just another moment where they don't match. Like, it doesn't make sense. Why would it be different in?
Yeah, I can bring that back to the staff and see if there's a reason why those two are different. If they touch on different items, maybe, I'm not too sure, but I'll definitely bring it up on the language of both the, technical weed language and then the penalty language.
yeah, and,
Get
they
some
may have
clarification.
reasons for it, but
Right.
I don't know what it is, because I haven't talked to them.
Okay.
so.
Yeah, two good catches. I'll make sure to bring that up. Sounds like we're probably not gonna take action on this.
I thought maybe they would show up and explain it to us, but, but,
Should we
Alright.
keep going?
yeah.
Good.
So now we're looking at C.
Yeah, C, so the difference in C, C is, are we pretty much the same on C except for how we're defining native landscaping areas?
Yeah, that's the big difference.
Yeah, so then in D is where they define the private native, now they have privately owned versus private, which is, maybe is more appropriate. But the difference is, in the city one, they want people applying for designation of a native landscaping area, whereas our version, the owner of the land sends notice, and the city version doesn't say if there's any minimum size below which you don't have to apply, right? Whereas ours said 50% of the total area of the said property, so there's now, and I could see how you might say, well, you could have a really big lot and we don't want, it has to be in square footage, not what percentage of the lot or whatever. But the way they read the city one, you could have 100 square feet, a 10 by 10 area with native flowers, and a neighbor could complain, right? And they would say, well, you didn't apply for your permit to have that, and therefore you gotta mow it. You know what I'm saying? It seems like and I think maybe they feel that, well, people only do this if they're doing like half their yard or their whole yard or whatever, but somebody might wanna just plant a few, a small area of native flowers, maybe just to try it out and see what it's like, and
So yeah, the thought process behind having the application essentially
right, and
is to mitigate, phone calls that come in, and so the staff can look in the system and say, yep, they have an application and it's been approved. Sorry, neighbor, but they're good to go.
They're registered with
So
us.
for
They are-
any
they are
size?
clear.
So do they really wanna hear from people who wanna do a 10 by 10 area?
Well, I mean, yeah, if someone complains and then staff go out there and they say, oh, there's, a bunch of tall grass and whatever back there. And, they're not registered, well, then they're gonna get that violation. Well, then they can call and say, oh, I didn't know that I needed to do this. They fill out the application, they get it approved, and then they don't have to cut it. I mean, it's,
Okay, so it kind of gives protection to the person doing it, that they're assured that,
yeah, it doesn't mean that they're not gonna get approved to do it. It's just more or less to have a record of it.
a record of it, okay.
Is there a
So-
Well, and
fee
that's the
associated with
notice
that?
kind of,
The notice is different than approval, but maybe, so then
Well, we don't know, we
within,
don't have the phone numbers to these people. I mean, we could just, if we knew everybody's phone number, we could just make a phone call and say, hey, what are you trying to do here? But the only way that staff has the ability to inform somebody of a potential violation is through the mail, because we have the address.
okay,
So
so
I'm just kinda
that's,
going through,
that's
the
kind
way
of
it
the
might work
rationale
out.
for that. So, and I don't know how city code is supposed to be written, but should there be anything about how quickly it has to be turned around, or,
I believe it said something about it needed to be mowed within 30 days.
no, when you
That's it?
apply for your native landscaping
Oh,
area.
the
Do they have to
application.
let you know within a certain time period, or, I'm assuming there's no fee for it, or?
I don't think that there would be a fee.
Is there an
yeah.
official application you fill out, or you just you just send the parks director your garden plan, or?
Yeah, it would just be like, a sketch on a piece of paper showing, your 10 by 20 area, and, on your property, you'd have to kind of just, and staff could help with that
So
too, if you needed
types
help
of
drawing it.
vegetation and any other information the director deems
get
necessary. So you
Wow.
just email them and
Apparently.
say, here's my garden plan?
Yeah.
And I'd like to have it be designated as a native,
As a privately owned native landscaping area.
Fancy.
but the only question I have then is, so if someone has a plot of 10 by 10, let's just keep using that example.
Yeah.
Non-native landscaping area, they don't technically have to register, or is that something that they still do? Like if someone wanted to put in like, I don't know, not a tree, 'cause I know you have to do something with that, but say they wanted to do a garden that
they wanted to plant,
incorporated some ornamental grasses and all these different things, but it's not native. You see what I'm saying? So it just seems like adding,
Right.
we're doing this because it's a native landscaping area versus it just being like,
Ornamental.
yeah. So that distinguishment, so it's like, kind of like, oh, well, if I want to plant native, I have to go through this process, but if I just want to put in whatever I want that's not,
So it could be a detriment to actually using the native plantings.
potentially.
Definitely a
Seems
determined.
like a barrier. It seems like there is more work being asked of individuals who want to plant native plants.
Right.
And I guess my question would be, why are we creating barriers for folks to plant native plants?
So in my experience, again, with the city of Appleton, going to people's houses, if I was called to a house because they had high grass and weeds, I would go there and they would show me, oh, this is actually native landscaping. I'd confirm it, they'd tell me what kind of flowers, and then we'd be done with it. There's other times where it is noxious weeds or really tall grass, and that's when they would get a violation. I think it's important that the code enforcement person has the knowledge of what native landscaping actually is. So that, again, is on like the training and education of staff.
okay.
Who would be enforcing this?
Goes
Probably
director-
inspections.
Says director of parks is who you apply to.
Well, that's
but-
who would be the person overseeing the plans, because.
Okay.
Because like, as you just mentioned, like, I don't have a background in native plants. I'm not sure if any of the inspection staff does either, but like, basically they'd have to go on site and probably take some pictures, or
Yep, pictures.
maybe have to go out there with a forester or one of the horticulturists.
That says there shall be specific management techniques outlined to control noxious weeds and rodent infiltration.
And also intrigued by rodent infiltration.
Same.
I don't know how
Right.
one can alleviate a rodent infiltration.
Well,
There-
a squirrel is a rodent, isn't it?
Yeah, there are squirrels in
And
Voles.
every neighborhood in America.
Right.
Definitely
Who doesn't have
voles.
chipmunks and, yeah.
The other part that concerned me is where the owners shall agree to hold the city harmless for all acts necessary to enforce its weed cutting and lawn care regulation. I understand why that's there, but My concern would be that the city would send somebody out to mow it all down, and you've just spent a gazillion dollars getting this all done, and they don't realize that it's native plantings.
It definitely has to go through a process, like they don't go and mow it right away, like you would have a 30-day notice, then maybe another
Right.
15, then you would go to court and get a warrant. So there are steps in place for it to not just totally
Yeah,
get mowed
like
over.
when it happens now, my understanding of it is that there's kind of like a process, not like, hey, there's grass out here, get over here and cut it. It's, you get noticed, you have the opportunity to cut it on your own, and then after a certain amount of time passes, then the hired contractor for the city goes out and does it.
They
By
do
then, they
have a-
need a machete, right?
I don't know what they do.
Is that laid out in this language that we're currently looking at? That stepwise process of notice?
I don't think it's even in
Isn't it in
the,
two?
There,
Not that I saw.
Part 2 says 30 days.
Allowing the owner 30 days to either correct the violation or convert the property into a mowed and manicured lawn composed of common stand or turf grass, mowed to a height of not greater than 8 inches. Failure to act on the notice shall entitle the city to proceed according to subsection B above.
uncutting part.
This just states that you get 30 days.
And if you disagree with the citation, basically they send you a notice, which is like a citation, right?
It's just a correction notice.
Right, but you can take that to court and say,
Well, again, if you had an area that was of native plants, then all
Right.
you'd have to do is say, this is my native plant area, and
Fill out the
get
application.
it approved, and then you'd be good to go.
If you weren't aware that you needed to file an application with the Parks Department, that would alert you to that too.
Right.
And
Okay.
probably that notice should include language that said that, you know.
Tells you how,
the other thing is another part of the code having to do with landscaping, a lot of it's landscaping around parking lots. You have to have so many points in your landscaping plan, and you can get more points by having native plants. So when somebody's landscaping their parking lot, do they need to apply for this native landscaping area?
I don't believe so, because it wouldn't fall under the privately owned
As it's
native
privately
landscaping.
owned,
Well, I mean,
Would it?
I'm not sure, but I mean, either which way, they're still submitting landscaping plans with those developments, so they're being reviewed and approved.
So they are being reviewed
By
and
some
approved
form of
by
something,
somebody.
yeah.
Okay, so then that,
question,
because that part of the code tends to, encourage native
Right.
plants, is what it's doing, but it does go through an approval process, so.
Yeah, I mean, I will
they're
say when
covered.
staff looked at this, they thought that some things needed to be refined. Nobody wants to not have more native plants in the city. There's just a matter of trying to still make it so it can be regulated and somewhat, have it be just the best way to figure out where these areas are when the questions arise about what they are and why they're there.
And is there a reason why they want an approval process as opposed to just somebody giving notice? Or?
You're saying with the application as opposed to just,
Right,
yeah, like what if the application was just, hey, this is a notice, I'm doing this thing? Like, who's to approve or deny it?
And it goes back to
Director
the
of Parks or
designee, or a
designee.
director of parks or
Right, or
designee. So in the
designee.
past, it had been the forester.
So I guess, do we know like what percent, like, do we know the history of like how these have been approved? Like, do we know any that have really been like,
I'm not
Didn't
familiar with any
I?
that have been approved.
There probably are people who have native plant gardens in the city, and
right, but I
they
question how
don't
many
know
have
this code,
applications.
and so they
Yeah,
don't bother.
none.
And for the most part, their neighbors probably don't complain, but it's kind of like if you have a code, it should be something that,
The other thing with, I'll just pull up yours for an example, the 50% total area thing, it'd be hard to just say like, you're allowed to do up to 50%. And then let's say we get a phone call and say, hey, my neighbor has their whole yard, a native plant garden. And if the code said 50%, we would have no way of knowing if it's 50% or not. Like, we couldn't just, how would we know?
Google Earth.
Now, those images are old.
Yeah, I suppose.
So here's, and maybe we're getting at the question that I have. What is preventing from this policy being applied to someone who, say, just would happen to plant like purple coneflowers, right, like in their yard? You know, maybe like, what is the difference between someone planting native plants, I guess sort of in a large flower bed versus,
Specific native plant.
yeah, like
Yeah.
in kind of to be used as a lawn. Do you understand? Like, is that?
Yeah, I was thinking-
Is that the question that we're asking here? Is like,
Sure.
are we talking about replacing lawn with native planting?
So I was thinking as these questions got brought up, is that maybe part of this needs to be a definition of a native plant area? And what does that actually mean?
Right.
Right,
Because
like is it a
And
flower
people
bed
could,
or,
people could
yeah,
have
like a
mixed
lawn?
flowers, they could
Right.
have,
I'm just thinking if you wanted to
Yeah.
do your whole landscaping area, you know, kind of your normal landscaping area, all native
Around the
plants,
house. Yeah.
Yep.
would you have to get this approved? You know what I mean? Like we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Like a
if
bed,
you-
like a bed of flowers,
I
but
think
it's just all
the
native.
I think
Right.
the logic when we were looking at the proposed edits was kind of this swath of land, this big, you know,
Replacing
garden.
lawn. with-
Yes.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's something that you guys want to
When-
decide what does a native, you know, a privately owned native landscaping area mean?
well, I mean, if you're,
Yeah, should
if you have a
definitely.
garden, if you have a flower bed and you say, well, this year I'm gonna plant more native plants in my flower garden, do you have to apply for permission to do that?
That's
No,
what we're asking.
That's what we're
Yeah,
asking,
that's-
yeah.
I think not.
Yeah.
No, you,
No.
But does this clarify that you don't, then?
Yeah, I think that should be part of what
I think
this
that needs
revision
to
should
be
be.
defined.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I'm thinking a minimum area or something, I mean, how big are flower beds normally, or, you know?
I don't think that
Or
flower
even if-
beds should really be part of this at all,
Agreed.
taken into consideration. I think that our intention was initially that for people who wanted to plant a prairie instead of turf
lawn.
grass.
Yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
the way this is written, I don't see how that distinguishes between those two things.
Right.
That's what we're stating as well. So we're asking for a definition of what is native
Yeah.
landscaping versus my flower bed.
Right, and say you want to plant some bushes, you know, and they turn out to be native plant bushes, you know, or hedge or whatever, is that, you would normally plant some kind of hedge row or bush there, and, you know, say between your yard and the neighbor's yard, or in the front of your house, or whatever, and
Yeah.
say if you decide that you want to do something that's a native plant as opposed to, you know, as opposed to an exotic, you know, that's not covered under this, is it? But it could be, somebody could interpret it that way. That's-
Pat, I think you're coming up with a lot of scenarios that aren't really
Right.
going to happen, but I agree, we should make this defined. So
Yeah.
what I would suggest doing is, it sounds to me like we need to have a meeting with a staff person who's knowledgeable about, no offense, I don't mean that you're not, but,
It's not me.
type of inspector or
Yeah.
code.
right,
person.
exactly.
Yeah. What their
And
concerns
maybe
are.
a couple of us. I'm thinking maybe if Lisa had time, that might be a good thing you would like to do.
For sure.
You seem to have some expertise in this area. And one of you who worked with this, and just hash it out and bring it back next month, because we're not going to accomplish anything discussing it here.
No,
Because we don't have enough answers, and we
Right,
need too
yeah.
many definitions. So maybe if anyone has additional thoughts on this that they haven't had a chance to share yet, maybe send those to Brandon, and then maybe Brandon can set up a meeting with some appropriate staff members and Lisa and whoever else would like to be involved.
well, probably Michelle and me.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that all the questions got brought up. I think we distinguished a couple of good issues that can come back, so.
All righty. Okay,
Table.
so, yes. Yes, did I hear a motion to table?
Not from me.
Did.
Yes, I did. Did I hear a second for that?
Second.
And we all agree to table it?
Aye.
Hey,
Okay.
So that was Brad and Vic then?
Yes.
All right.
All right, then. Where did I put my agenda? There we go. MIT Energy Model Analysis. This one needs no action tonight, just discussion.
Yeah, so I remember at the last meeting, I think Brad brought it up, showed a nice presentation, and then after the meeting, I think I put together an email for everybody that had hopefully the presentation, hopefully everybody downloaded. I think the link is probably not working anymore because the 30 days has passed, probably, maybe not. So I think, yeah, if everybody got an opportunity to look that over, then conversation was just about those items.
Can I just ask why we had a 30-day link?
When those big files get sent from the city, there's a certain thing that we have to fill out to get a large file sent through an email. It has to be a link, and the maximum they can be allowed for is like 30 days. So it's usually it can be one
So
day
if
or
we-
5 days.
If we looked at it and didn't download it, it's too late, you're thinking?
Well, I think I maybe sent it on the meeting was on the 7th. I probably sent it on the 8th or the 9th, so they might still be available.
Couple of days.
We
Couple
probably got a
days
day or
left.
two, yeah.
Yeah, the 8th. I think.
Making note to download now.
So again, just from the last meeting, Brad's comment, I think, was something along the lines of, we should relook at the MIT stuff and, make sure we do something with it instead of letting it sit on the shelf. What that means?
Did
You'll
you
have to
have
let me know.
additional thoughts on that, Mr. Brad?
My additional thoughts are, I wish I would have looked over those things a little bit more. I mean, I in preparing for my presentation last time about kind of just city energy analysis, some very simple and straightforward things stuck out to me. One of them being, these kind of easy home upgrades that can be made to people's houses. So, for example, pre-1980 homes getting adding insulation, and so I think that would be something where, I don't know if we want to, kind of put out some kind of call and let people know. I mean, I think making people aware that this report has been drafted, right, and basically someone analyzed homes in the city of Oshkosh and made some recommendations. Here are the simple things, right? We're not asking everybody to put solar panels on their house right away, but there are very simple things that can be done to homes to improve the energy efficiency, to save them money in the long run. I don't know that we necessarily, while I think we could or should, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be tied to, climate change. For example,
Right,
It could just be
right.
tied to
Energy
energy
efficiency.
savings and fiscal responsibility and that sort of thing. And I think just highlighting some of those very simple measures that were addressed by this student from MIT, and then maybe identifying and outlining specific ways that the city can help support individuals. So someone who may not have the financial means to do that, one of the things I know we talked about last time was using some of the city programs for folks to explore the solar route if they did want to venture that way.
Yeah, within that same program, you can do insulation and windows and other home
Sure.
renovation, home
I think
remodels.
I think we need to help connect the dots a little bit for people because that report was pretty clear about a certain percentage of homes every year in the city of Oshkosh that are going to require one or more of those levels of upgrade. Insulation perhaps being the most simple, right? Solar being kind of on the higher end
Yeah.
of cost. And I want to say it was something in the ballpark of 7% of houses every year need to be doing
Right.
something. How many homes have not done anything?
Yeah, and I think that report, in addition to solar, there was the cold climate air source heat pumps. But that comes after you insulate.
Right.
That doesn't work if your house isn't well insulated.
Right, so I think it might be worth prioritizing, and then again, I think building a little bit of some awareness. And I don't know by what method that is most successful.
The easiest thing I can think of is if we were able to put together some type of marketing thing, a flyer, and then it could just go out with the water bill.
some type of checklist. I know WPS has, you can send in and get up to a certain percentage of funds for them to like replace light bulbs with LED. There's all sorts of energy efficiency, but of course, people probably don't know that it's out there.
That's the focus on energy program, is what I
And the
know,
other thing
yeah.
is too, I mean, you know, AdvoCap is one of our partners on it's called the One Oshkosh Plan. So we could easily, you know, put in a flyer as well, market them, right? Because they take care of a certain demographic that the city can't take care of with their funding. So you know, a lot of people might not know that they qualify for their, you know, programs as well. So it's, you know, I'm just envisioning this flyer that would have kind of an all-encompassing take on it. People might just throw it away, but you know, it's a good reach out at least.
So a question I have would be, if we, as a board, were to draft something, let's say it's a sort of just two-page, right, one document, cover information on both sides. Is that something we need to draft? And then what is the process by which we get that approved before it's sent out with a city water bill?
I mean, I think something like that could just be worked in internally with the planning staff. You know,
Okay.
if you or whomever, a team wanted to put it together, we could, you know, make our edits if needed. Maybe it's perfect, and then we'd be able to print it out. And they got a large printer up here on this. You know, we could just print out thousands of copies of it. And
So we don't need to discuss it or circulate it in this?
In the past, we had done one, I'm trying to remember,
Chicken?
Michelle, no, way before the chickens. This had to do with water, when Justin was still a member. And it was how to conserve water and the importance of that. It was shortly after the new water plant was built, I think. And at that time, we did write it in committee here. We had subcommittees at that time that met at different times of the month. But then we did pass it around, and everybody on the Sustainability Board did approve it, and then we sent it on to be printed. And after we had approved it, I don't think any changes were made to it that I recall, probably because we did such an excellent job. And of course, that would happen again, so. But it did go in the water bills. And the only thing do we know, does everybody receive a water bill in the mail?
I don't know.
Do you get it just
emailed.
online? Okay.
So that's an email then?
Yeah, I think.
But for any documents?
Oh,
that
actually, I
there's-
probably do get one, and
No, I
it's on
still get
auto
it.
pay, so
I
I
still
do get a
get it in the
paper
mail.
copy. I get
Yeah.
a paper copy, yeah, I do.
I know there was
It's on
something
auto
stuffed
pay.
in it last month that I,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
look
guess,
at.
I guess I do
Well,
get
that's,
it. I
I
do
guess
get it.
that's sort of my comment would be, is sending a flyer with a water bill the most effective strategy?
Just an idea.
And I don't want to say that we shouldn't do that, because I do think that's probably a good way to, but,
I think it should be part of an overall strategy
a
that had
multi-pronged
some,
approach, I think would be
Yeah.
best.
Especially moving more to electronic things, as I know I don't get paper copies anymore because I didn't want to get paper copies. I just get the electronic version of my.
So here's a question. Could a document be created that could also live virtually somewhere on the city's website?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, anything that's PDF can be on the website.
but we can put it there, but how do we get them there?
Right.
Is
So they
always
can
my
find it.
concern.
Yeah.
Well, we have Oshkosh Media too. I mean, I feel like there's ways for us to announce it. We just have
We
to
could
figure
do a
out the steps.
PSA.
Something like
They,
that.
they will make PSAs.
So I'm willing to take
good
a
idea.
first pass at a document.
Cool.
Okay, with info on how to weatherize your house, basically. Because we do know from his reporting that that's one of the hugest things we can do here. And I don't know if you all saw the new news from the UN today on their climate report. To put it succinctly, we're pretty much screwed. 1.5 degrees too close, tipping point already. I mean, it was not good news. It's especially not good news for somebody who's been working on sustainability with the city for 15 years, let me tell you. So not to get too emotional here, but could somebody please listen to us?
But there's bad, and then there's even worse, so.
Yes, I know. It's not a bright future
Not time to give up.
without us without us being the whole world, paying a little bit more attention here and doing a little bit more, a little faster, and take a little out of all of that. So, yes, I think we definitely need to figure out a way to market weatherization. It's one of our first things.
Is there a way for us to track it? Like if this gets sent out and people start to update their homes, is there a way for us to get confirmation that they did it and then we can kind of track that?
I think that'd be great. That to me would be a city kind of.
Yeah, I mean, so we have, all of our permits are done in a permitting software that has reporting. So the problem with it is like if someone decides that they want to do a number of items, right? Say they want to do roofing, siding, insulation. The permit may be a roof permit, and then the description is going to have everything that's in there. It might not very easily be able to pull off of the word installation in the description, right? It's more of the code of roofing permit. So I don't know if there's a really great way of doing it, but
Maybe when they pick up a permit, we could ask them to let us know when something happens. You know, when they're done with what they did. Does that make sense?
Share your progress with
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the worst they can do is not do it.
Correct. They could just say no.
Ken, do you have any thoughts? You've been
I'm not
mighty
sure I can
quiet
speak. I
tonight.
haven't been officially part of the roll call.
yeah, no, I was wondering that too, actually. For the record, I don't think we did
You didn't do
roll call.
Why don't we do roll call now, then, if we can feel comfortable? We were just waiting for Ken and Aaron to get
There we go.
here.
Can we do that quick?
Sure, why not?
Okay. All right, we're gonna do roll
This
call.
has all been by the book tonight anyway.
Well, I mean, it's, we're still pretty fresh here in person, so. All right, Eric DeGroot.
Yep.
Pat Halquist.
Here.
Lisa Marone.
Here.
Vic Oliver.
Here.
Ken Osmond.
Here.
Bob Peschel is excused. Brad Spambauer.
Here.
Aaron Wojciechowski.
Yeah.
Michelle Bogdan Metzel.
Yes, good job.
I heard you
Present.
say it last time. You should have just corrected me. And Margie Davy.
Here.
Hey, that's one.
Ken.
Well, the only
Please
thing
speak.
I would interject is that the difference between two constituencies, and that is the homes older than 1980 that are owner occupied versus the vast number of landlord-owned properties, rental properties, and how those different groups are incentivized, notified about what's available to them. Because there are two different distinctions also from a tax perspective on the benefits of doing these things. So, and then what's available to them, what's not, because some of the programs are owner occupied only, not rented properties. So it's different if you're talking to me as a person who owns my house on New York Avenue versus a person, and I own 10 rental properties by campus.
Right.
It's a different notification process, it's a different, education process, it's different information of what actually does apply to me, versus not.
The one particular program that we're talking about, it's called owner occupied. There's the exact same program for rental properties. So there is a program out there that has the same loan amount, the same interest rate, the same years to pay back the loan, covers all the same stuff for rental properties.
Right. And I was also thinking too, in terms of magnitude of impact. Obviously, if you can get a landlord to do multiple properties at once, there's actually greater benefit sooner. And that's kind of part of the awareness, I guess, and I just wanted to point that out.
In terms of
Yeah.
landlords or owners who are renting out their properties, usually their renters are paying the utility bills, right?
Right, that's why a
So-
landlord doesn't normally care.
Right, so what would incentivize the landlord would be his properties would become more rentable or,
Well, the thing is, there are a number of properties where the utilities are included, or at least some of the utilities are included.
okay,
So there is incentive
Uh-huh.
for certain things, not all things, but then
Yeah.
there's also, it does make the property more sellable in the future should a landlord decide to disinvest from certain property.
okay, and sell it.
So, yeah.
So it helps his property value
Long-term.
long-term.
And there may be future governmental, federal and state programs where you could get tax benefit for making the property more energy
Right.
efficient. So it's,
Right,
like I said, it's a different thought process depending on which constituency you're speaking to.
right, yeah, yeah.
And we want to incentivize those people, right? They are providing housing. They should be incentivized to make those properties more energy efficient.
How much of the city property is, of city housing is rental?
Again, in our permitting software, you're supposed to apply for a rental permit. I forget what it's called. If you rent out a home, you're supposed to apply for a permit to do so every year. We can easily run a report and figure out how many rentals there are based on that, but that doesn't mean that that's covering
Not
every
everybody
single rental.
does
because
their
Not everybody follows the
permitting.
In
rules.
my neighborhood, it's about 50%.
Yeah, I was gonna say, on my side of town, it seems like there's an awful lot of rental properties, but not in my neighborhood. Well, a block away, but,
My thought would be the flyer or the literature that would go out would be, would call out certain audiences. So if you're a renter, right, here's how to talk to your landlord about this. If you are a landlord, here are the programs that apply to you. If you're owner occupied, right, single family, here's how this applies. You know, kind of organize it by how the light bulb comes on in my head, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully the light bulb comes on.
So when you're working on that, you can do that.
Right.
It's kind of like making it multilingual, it's just multi-targeting.
I do have one
Multilingual
comment.
would be good too.
Yeah, I was
We
going to
need that
say that too would be
layer of-
good, but
Yeah, access.
I do have one comment on a previous piece of business, but you tabled it. But I didn't know if I could speak or not because I wasn't part of the roll call.
The native plant,
Yeah.
now that it's tabled, can you talk about it? I don't know.
I don't know, you might have to wait till next time.
Okay.
I don't know the rules on that, I'm not sure.
I've got the rules here somewhere.
How by the book do we want to be tonight?
But you know
Already?
what? If I can't find them, well, we could just let him say it. What the heck?
plus we already.
What are they going to do? They're going to fire me.
Well, let's
Okay,
just-
good.
How about this, Ken? Let's just wait till we get to agenda
we're-
items for future
Okay.
meetings.
Yeah, when we're done with
That's
this.
something
yeah.
to explore next time.
So as far as the MIT, have we agreed that Brad's going to be writing something? Do we have a time frame for that?
By next month,
By our next meeting?
I'll have a draft.
Beautiful.
Okay, you heard it here first, folks.
If I don't have a deadline, it doesn't happen.
So here's your deadline, Brad.
Oh, by the time the
Yes,
agenda comes
I was gonna
out.
say, really, what is my deadline?
So our next
Brandon?
meeting will be May 2nd, so it's really ideal if you get that to me, if you want it to be a part of the meeting packet by the 25th, 26th at the very latest.
Got 20 days. Enjoy.
Got it.
And he's pretty strict on those days, let me tell you.
No, I'm not strict. The book is strict, and I follow the rules.
I've run into this recently, so I will make sure.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? We're going to wait till next month and see what we got, right?
One more question. Do we have
Yes.
any numbers on how many people in Oshkosh have solar panels, by chance?
Same thing, we just could run a report on.
Okay. I think that
on
could be
that.
helpful to possibly have our starting numbers and then what we can get to in
Mm-hmm.
the future.
Would you just,
Residential versus commercial?
I would probably say residential.
I think we could do that, I'm not sure. I'll try.
Great questions.
The other reason why
I'll
I bring it
try.
up is there are several businesses in town that are actively engaged in trying to put solar panels in
Okay.
And there's some businesses that have had them for a long
Yeah.
time.
for at least 20 years.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
on Sawyer, there's some stores there that have had them for as long as I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
And you have churches in town that have them.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yep.
And those have big impact because of the square footage, BTUs used and all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But that is varying a little bit from what we're trying to do here with residential weatherization. So
Right. The
Are
point
the-
we'd want to have the residential solar
And just let the
information
commercial
separate.
Split out.
Right,
And-
exactly,
Yeah,
yeah.
Is a simple table something that you guys want as part of the meeting next month then, or is that just something that you want, Lisa?
I mean, I think it would be helpful for maybe all of us to know, but then just have it on record so that we could use it for future use.
Okay.
I'm assuming there's very little air source heat pumps in town. Is
How
that,
would
would
you
that be
even-
accurate?
I mean, so there's no, so again, HVAC permit is what you need to
Okay.
do a new furnace.
Right, oh, maybe.
But
I
it's
mean,
not
there's
Did
a
you
mini-
apply? Like,
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know
I
if
think
with,
some of the heat pumps just look like mini splits, so there might be some around.
yeah, that would just fall under an HVAC permit, so I mean, I don't know if there's any description further in there about model and
Right, well,
what, you know, what they
Yeah.
are. It might just say
Benefit,
new
yeah.
furnace.
Yeah,
that's not gonna help.
Well, and I'm not sure that we want to dictate to people how they weatherize, but the overall goal is that they reduce their energy consumption, right?
Well, there's-
And keep the
Well, if they-
emissions lower.
I think the insulation is the first step before you start
Anything,
doing
yeah.
stuff like a air source heat pump. You know, you have to get a well-insulated house before you can do that. But if you want to, I mean, part of that MIT thing was electrifying everything, right?
We should all have Lustron homes. Do you know what a Lustron home is, anybody?
That where it's half underground.
There,
Those are cool too, though.
there are 2 Lustron homes in Oshkosh. They were built right after World War II when the soldiers were coming back and needed places to live. They were built by electric companies all across the country. They're made from, like you would make a car. They repurposed the car manufacturing, you know, where they built up for wartime. They repurposed that to make houses. And the houses that are in Oshkosh are turquoise with yellow trim, baked enamel, just like a car would be, with like, I think it's 3-foot sections. They're fascinating. The whole house is totally electric, and it sits on a concrete base. And one is on, they were always put on 2 different sides of town. One is over not far from the, it's on like 4th or 5th Street or something, kind of by the Parks Department. And the other one is, I'm trying to think of the exact intersection. If you go in like 1 block from New York and 1 block from Hazel or something like that, if you drive over there, you'll see it. It's the only turquoise house, you know, on the corner that's made out of metal. But it is right on the corner, and they're fascinating. I toured that one when it was for sale. I so wanted to buy it just because I thought it was so cool. And we already, you know, like had already built our house, and we didn't need a second house. But anyway, so yes, as recently, as far back as the late 40s,
What was that called?
Lustron, Lustron. And yeah, Google it, you'll find lots of good info on it. They also made gas stations. And I had a flat tire once on the way to, I don't know, I was somewhere in Nebraska. And Mike and I are sitting there looking around while they're fixing the tire, and we're going, this is one of the Lustron gas stations. Look at this. So just a little bit of tidbit of history there, sorry. But it was sustainable. Okay, then moving on. I'm done telling stories. Agenda items for our future meeting. We do have the snow shoveling and salting ordinance on there, or ordinances. I believe they were actually, no, they're all in the same one, aren't they? And we had discussed last month how we didn't want to let that go too long because we don't want to forget about it, and it's going to be winter again before we know it, which is not what we want to hear today, I know. So do we want to put that on next month?
Brad, if you want to give an update, this would be your time to do so, based on your conversation.
Yeah, so I met with Allison Madison from Saltwise, who presented to us. She sent me some potential language from some cities in Minnesota. And so, again, I will be happy to take a first pass at editing the language in the document that normally is sent out, that calls out the ordinance about salting.
Excellent, thank you. Same time frame.
That one might be a little easier.
That one should be slightly easier.
Okay. If anybody wanted to comment on anything that we'd already done today, now might be a good time for that, too.
I would like to potentially discuss a philosophical shift. This has been bugging me ever since I saw this ordinance, and then Pat hit the nail on the head. This is a lawn care and weed ordinance. And it's my personal belief that native plant species should be excluded from this, and instead there should be a new ordinance for native species protection, rather than trying to muddle this up with native plants. Then we can clearly define what native plants are, we can clearly define what those areas are, and we can make it enforceable protection of those plants. That way the person planting them, as long as they're following the guidelines, does not have to do anything.
I'm glad you were able to make it tonight. Excellent. So we'll want,
Idea.
yeah, we'll want to copy Kenyon on that meeting too with the staff.
Well, that kind of goes, what we kind of decided or determined too, like that, maybe defining, what that area means, because I think that could play into this a little bit.
Well, basically, you realize what Ken just did was he took like 45 minutes of discussion and put it into 2 sentences.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry.
thank you, thank you.
Nailed it.
No, thank you very much.
I mean, it came out of a student report on native landscaping, but it has to do, it's a lawn
Right.
care ordinance, yeah.
Okay, new focus. Anything else that we should look at a little differently, Ken?
No,
Okay.
I stirred the pot enough.
Just jump in anytime.
We like
Aaron.
it.
I had something completely different, and this might not necessarily be something for next meeting, but just something that the committee could think about. I'm wondering if it is if it's an appropriate time to take a review of the sustainability plan that the city has approved. It was last update. I know it's a huge thing, but I just was reading through
Never again.
the plan, but it has like goals and things, and a lot of the goals, and like there's no completion targets on a lot of things. And the last time it was updated was in 2020. So I'm more so for like, have we completed any of these things in here? Can we take things off the list?
Like an update on it,
Kind of, yeah.
progress update.
Yeah, because
Okay.
I mean, this is the first time I'm looking at like as being on council, and I'm just curious as to how it's progressed since the last time it was looked at. Like even on here, it says it was updated in 2020, but this still says 2019 sustainability goals, and it has like people who are responsible or committees. And
That's
some of
not
the-
our sustainability plan. We're talking 2 different things here, just to be clear.
Oh, but it's in the plan.
Yeah.
It is in the plan? You
Yeah.
put that in there? Or
There's
I'm not
SAB.
sure if I did.
It says
No.
there's SAB
2019,
goals.
I wasn't.
There's SAB goals in here, but that's just a small section of the overall.
Our goals and objectives that we do every year.
Right.
That is in that plan from 2019.
Our sustainability plan, our
Yes.
big 10-chapter sustainability plan has that in there too?
99
Yeah.
pages.
Oh, okay. We do update that every year, but I'm not sure that we that we have it uploaded
We
then.
don't amend the plan from it then.
Right.
Right.
The
Yeah.
council would have to approve it. But that just came to my mind because I know since we're talking about environmental justice, there's not a section in this plan that talks about environmental
Right.
justice, so it might be the appropriate time to make those amendments if we're already talking about it.
The reason that we all started laughing when you said it, Aaron, I have to explain.
And I'm new, so that's why.
Yeah, well, in,
It's a beast.
when the Sustainability Board began, like in 2009, 8, something like that, it took us till 2012 to get the initial plan written, and it was to be updated every 5 years was the
Okay.
initial plan. Well, we realized, in like 2016 that it was probably time to start on it, but it took until 2019 to get it done, and that was with different people working on different chapters, and it's a very cumbersome process to update it. But before we even got it past the council, I presented it to the Plan Commission. At that time, I was not on it, and the first comment was, well, you don't have any DEI stuff in here. And it's like, oops, didn't realize that when we started working on this 2-3 years ago, or the first time around. So it's constantly needing updated, and you're right, it does. All those chapters also need looked at now through a DEI lens, which hasn't happened. And I've reached out to see if we could maybe get aren't you on DEI
Yeah.
too? It would be really nice if you guys could take all those chapters and look through them all and decide, make suggestions on how we could make it more appropriate to the times. And, this happens to every group that has positions or plans, they need updated constantly. The one good thing about the way we did this last time was that because it is online, we figured we could always update bit by bit, as opposed to having to, republish the whole thing. And so that's good that you called that out, and we should, you're right, we should review the plan. Which chapter would you like? Oh, wait, you wanted to write the social justice one.
I was just looking at the goals, so it's page 85 if you're, or 79, I guess, if you're in
So
85.
when did you come on the board, Aaron?
April of last year.
April of
Almost a
last
year, yeah.
You may have missed the meeting, but like I think in December is when we go through that.
December or January, I think we did it in January.
So December or January, usually every year, they go through.
Okay.
We look at all those things. We kind of complete some of them, add new target dates, add new items to it. It just doesn't get put back in
Okay,
the
so it
plan.
has been updated, just like not
Yeah.
specifically.
And I
Right.
can send you an
on there.
update, the updated one if you
Okay.
want it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay.
And I'll bring that to DEI. I know they're also in the process of creating basically a similar plan, but strictly focused on DEI, so.
Well,
I
we'd like to
understand
talk to
it's-
them about including a little sustainability in there then.
I'll just send the update to everybody, or the goals and objectives to everybody again, just to keep it on your brain.
Yeah, keep it fresh.
While we're asking for Brandon to send things, can you please send me the document that I think Margie has about the snow shoveling flyer? Like, can I get that as a digital file so that I can make
I mean, in all honesty, if you Google
suggestions?
snow shoveling requirements, City of
Okay,
Oshkosh, I
that
bet
is
you you'll,
somewhere on the website.
I'm sure you'll find it.
Okay, and then can you send me? Oh, I can look it up online. I'll find the.
Here's
I'll look
here's the
for
section and number and stuff.
The code that's needed.
It's
for
right here.
this. Yeah, and for the anything that would be related to,
Snow shoveling?
well, that and the
Salt.
home energy upgrade. So
Oh, that
anything
stuff.
related to that permit requirements. It'd
Okay.
be good to include those rules so that folks are aware.
Okay.
But basically, just information that you think of. Otherwise, I will
Sure.
scour the city's website, and I'm sure, find it very easily. Right?
Government municipal codes,
Okay.
Good luck.
best way to get there.
Okay, other items for future reference.
I would like to have the shoreland stuff added, because I haven't talked about the native plants out in Menominee Park for a while, and obviously we're getting into that time, and there's already been a lot going on, so I would love to talk about it.
I'm trying to think if any of it is where dated. Is there anything that we should know now as opposed to next month?
No, not necessarily. We're just working with,
Okay.
we're collaborating very closely with UWO, and there's a lot of really cool things happening. So not anything negative or anything that we need urgent support on, but just update and
Okay, we'll be
having
sure we get an
ideas and
update on
discussion.
next month then. We kind of, it fell off of here. We'd been putting it on every month and then not doing it, so.
yeah, and it's just nice to get this board's feedback besides just the Parks Board, and obviously we all have good ideas.
Well,
too.
and we want you to fill us in on the Parks Board too,
Yep.
so. I failed this month to get in touch with Brandon in the appropriate time frame, and that's why I didn't see the agenda before it went out, so. Believe me, he's serious about that, Brad.
Oh, I'm aware.
Okay.
I will keep my timetables.
Okay, anything else from anyone? Then our next meeting will be on Monday, May 2nd, and I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All righty.